No one is coming. It's up to us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of my podcast, No One is Coming. It's up to us. I've got a special guest with me today. This is the first guest I've ever had on my pod, Tyler Huckett. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And just for everybody, zero planning went into this, so we're gonna do it live. So I kind of really what I'm trying to do here is take everyday normal people that have like normal, I don't want to say problems, but issues that they're going through, and then kind of put that out to the world to let the world know that they're probably not the only one going through these problems, and maybe you've solved some of these problems because you have a pretty interesting background. And I suppose we should start at the beginning. You're originally from Vermont.
Born and raised, yeah.
Yeah, and you joined. Just take us through a little bit, like up to the Army.
Up to the Army?
Yeah.
Okay. There I go, clearing my throat. But yeah, I was born in Vermont, and we grew up in a small town. I think when you were talking about 1,200 people earlier, the town was maybe 1,500, 2,000 people. Elementary school was kind of strange. The whole small town vibe is pretty weird once you grow up in it. But did that, graduated from high school. We can back up a sec. Got out of elementary school. High school was kind of a pain in the ass. I tried to drop out. Didn't really work out for me that well. My principal was actually a pretty good dude, and there's a lot of teachers there that were pretty helpful, but I ended up going to a vocational school, and I did computer tech for 2 years. And had I not been able to scoot over to a vocational school, I would have never got through high school. And you might have to pull more things out of me for like.
No, I think it's important to kind of get the background on things, because you've had a pretty interesting career. If you really kind of peel the onion back here, because you know we met in the Army.
Yeah.
And you went from in Special Operations Aviation to, and I might have the order out of order a little bit, but I remember when you were getting out, I remember you actually out processing, talking about Polestar, and you had the stickers and the whole thing, Polestar coffee. So you kind of went from being in the Army to an entrepreneur. Somewhere in there, you went to Colorado to do Special Forces selection, and then back to a maple syrup farm in Vermont, and then mixed in with competitive shooting and like working at a gun place, then eventually coming back down here to Florida and working with me. And we'll kind of get into all that, but I think it's important to set the stage that you're not somebody that just everything went perfect.
Oh, absolutely not.
And so I think people need to hear that, like the real path of life isn't like a straight line. It's all over the place, and you figure it out as you go. So
yeah, absolutely. I think we were the family, I don't want to say like the poor family, but we were kind of like the family that was like, hey, don't let your kids hang out with those kids. Like I went to Boy Scout camp, and they wouldn't give me a knife to carve soap with, while all the other kids got a knife to carve soap with. And so I had to sit on the outside of the circle because I wasn't allowed to be in the circle, even when I was at Boy Scout camp.
Yeah, and that's, I didn't realize how, I kind of have a similar I went to camping with my Boy Scout troop, and my like tent buddy was a kid named Jason Brooks. Oddly enough, ends up marrying my cousin, and they're still married. And my dad had came on the camping trip with us, and we were like in 5th grade or something, and my dad was like, hey guys, here's a picture, and he went to take the picture, and that kid Jason gives the middle finger. And my dad thought it was hilarious and printed the pictures and then gave them to the scoutmaster, and they kicked the kid out of Boy Scouts for that.
Jeez.
And like, it's kind of the same thing what you're talking about is like those kinds of things probably actually stick with you for a long, like Jason till this day will talk about that he got kicked out of Boy Scouts for giving the middle finger.
Yep.
And I'm sure for you, it's kind of the same thing. Like
everything's a collection, right? So
Yeah.
you pass through these things and you pick them up like, burdocks walking through a field or something. They just kind of attach themselves to you. And, a few isn't so many, but as life goes on, you get more and more of these little things that kind of hook into you. And eventually, all of them together make whoever it is you become. But even that's not a small act for a kid to sit outside of a circle and be like, hey, you're not welcome here, even at Boy Scout camp.
Yeah.
And it's
What's a burdock?
Up north, it's like a little ball with hooks on it, and it grows on like a
gumball tree thing?
I have no idea.
Like a sand spur, but bigger?
Yeah, they're like brown in the fall.
They're like this big around?
Yeah.
Like I'm showing a size of about a quarter.
Yeah. A bouncy ball, size of a bouncy ball. A standard size 25-cent twisty machine bouncy ball.
Yeah, I think they're from like gum trees maybe or something, sweet gum maybe.
No, they come from there's like a little plant that grows in a field.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different world up there.
I've never lived north of Virginia, so
God, that's way down south.
Yeah. But anyways, back to you. So, so how did you went to vocational school doing computers? How did you? What year was that?
That was 2003, somewhere in there.
Okay, so post September 11th.
Yep.
How did you go from that to the Army? Like what was that?
So as a kid, even younger, back in elementary school, and even part of that, I was removed from my elementary school because they didn't want me around the other 4 kids that were in my class. So they put me in a trailer behind the elementary school. So I was kind of a loner type kid. And I had started reading a lot about war, Vietnam War and, the World War II or whatever. And I'd always kind of had it in my head that, maybe I'll grow up and be a soldier someday. It seems like those dudes go through some pretty tough stuff. And the stuff you read about them doing is kind of like unreal. You can't imagine a human being ever making those decisions under fire just to save their buddies, right? Regardless of the situation at hand, or they believe in whatever war they're fighting, but they're willing to do some crazy act of selflessness to go, out there and take care of their buddies. And so that kind of hooked into me when I was a kid. There's pictures of me in BDUs and boonie hats, and I had my dog tags made at the Army Navy store when I was, 8 years old. And so it always kind of been in the back of my mind. And then September 11th happened, and of course that affected everybody who had a TV wheeled into their classroom that morning. And I was like, okay, that's probably what my future is going to be. But then I was 9th grade when that happened, so there was still some time. I kind of forgot about it, but I followed what was going on in Afghanistan and Iraq pretty closely. A lot of my friends' older brothers joined the Marine Corps, joined the National Guard, and they went off and did their stuff. And I was a bit of a smartass, if you can believe that. And there was a couple times prior to me joining that I ran into recruiters, and there was this one time a Marine recruiter came up to me while I was on the sidewalk. We would shovel off like a square on the sidewalk and skate, right? Because, in the wintertime, there's nothing else to do up there. And we just like to skateboard. And so we'd go shovel off like those 4x4 sidewalk blocks and we'd skate, and I'd just sit there and do kickflips or whatever for hours. And this dude walks up in his Marine dress uniform and he's like, "Hey, son, you ever given any thought to your future?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Yeah, I have." And he's like, "Well, how about the Marines?" I was like, "I'm going to be a sandwich artist at Subway." I was like, that's my goal. And he basically looked at me like I was a dumbass and was like, "Hey, whenever you want to grow up," and he handed me his little pamphlet and walked off. But I ran into, fast forward a couple of years, it was my senior year, it was 2005. And I saw a recruiter in the hallway. He had his little table set up, and I was going to go up there and be a bit of a smartass or whatever. Me and my buddies played paintball, and I hadn't really decided at this point I was going to join the Army. I kind of hadn't put any effort into it. And so I saw his table, and we were talking, and Don Frederick is his name. I still talk to him every now and then. And he's like, you come by my office, we'll talk. And I was like, all right. He's like, I'll see you tomorrow at so-and-so time. I was like, okay. He's like, hey, because his recruiting office was across from where my apartments were. So he'd seen me walk to school or whatever. And he's like, I know where you live. there's a brick on my desk. If you're not in my office by X time, I'm going to throw this brick through your window. And I was like, I like where this guy's coming from. You know how to talk to me. And so, yeah, I showed up that day, and we started talking. And then I didn't end up doing initially what I wanted to go do. I think helicopters was like number 3.
What was the first thing you wanted to do?
I wanted to go be a ranger. And so I was like, hey, I'll sign a ranger contract. But my future ex-wife and my mom talked me out of it. And they were like, hey, like, do something else. And I was like, yeah, but that's like what all the cool kids are doing. And then I let them talk me out of it. And it's funny. I signed up to be military intelligence, something like that, something in the MI field. And you could, at that time, you could sign up with your buddy. And both of you guys could go to basic together and go to AIT together, and you might get like your first duty station together, so you can go with a pal. So I conned somebody else into joining the Army, and it's like, cool, we got the contract paperwork together. I went to MEPS. We both went to MEPS at the same time. I failed because my blood pressure was so high, and he ended up getting in to the MI stuff, so we didn't get to do that. And then I came back, and that job closed, and they were like, hey, you need to get in shape, get your heart checked out, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I ended up on helicopters. That was like choice number 7.
Did you know what you were getting into at the time?
For helicopters or Army? No, not really. And it was funny. He was like, hey, check out all these. You can do aviation. And it's like, you learn to be a mechanic, then you can go be a pilot. I was like, that. Plus, if you get out, it's a viable job skill. I was like, all right, cool. He's like, what about this helicopter? I was like, that looks like a girl's helicopter. It was the Black Hawk.
Oh.
And then he's like, look at this thing. I was like, man, that thing's huge. Let's go do that. And so I took the 47s.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important to highlight that you were a SOAR baby, right?
Yeah. And
so for everybody that never heard that term, Special Operations Aviation Regiment, which is where Tyler and I met, usually they call them SOAR babies because that's their first assignment. They right out of AIT, Advanced Individual Training, they go straight to the regiment. And so you spent all your time in
12 years.
Yeah, in 3rd Battalion, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so and I think that's kind of where we can pick up where I actually met you at the end of your time.
Yeah.
Because I had moved up to the 3 shop from Charlie Company, and I think you were like filling in for the ops meeting or something.
Yeah, probably.
And that's probably where we met. And I really remember because you got out in probably 17, maybe
2018.
18. Yeah. So that was it's about a year before I retired. So I just remember. I remember seeing, I can't remember if it's like on your Facebook or something, but the whole Polestar coffee thing. And at the time I was like, man, that's pretty awesome. Like starting your own coffee company. And so I think really the kind of what I was kind of wanting to talk to and what I kind of struggle with. And I don't know if I've really talked about this on the other 2 podcast episodes, but I'll probably talk about it some more is when you got out of the Army, what was that like is in terms of like I'm assuming it was kind of scary getting out, and like for me when I got out, I kind of didn't have a sense of purpose, and I still kind of struggle with that, and so just kind of wondering what your if you can kind of walk through how you felt and the things that happened and how you've dealt with that. And I know that's a lot to unpack. So go.
On it. So to go back to the Polestar thing.
And for the record, I thought Polestar coffee was like strippers.
So it's great because it runs in two thought processes, right? Because in the Army, and the dudes are just like, specifically our unit, everyone was like, strippers, like, all right, cool, brand recognition for people like me.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other half is like, oh, the North Star, yeah, your guiding principle, like that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of catches 2 groups.
Yeah.
So
I was definitely in the strip club.
I think everybody we worked with was, and then everybody who didn't travel in our circle was of camp number 2.
Yeah. My wife was like strippers.
Yeah.
She was like,
she's
yeah, by association.
Yeah.
She's in. So yeah. And didn't you have a Subaru back then?
No.
It was a white car. Was it white?
What did I have? I had probably a GTI at that point because I went from the S5 and then I went to a GTI.
For some reason I was thinking, I don't know why, that just popped in my head that I thought you had a Subaru.
No, never in my life. Never, not once.
Okay.
Never.
You gotta get your dreads and
yeah. No, I wasn't in the Subaru camp.
Yeah.
So I had started that. I had a conversation with my buddy Mike, who was always kind of like my go-to, like, let me talk this out against you. And you tell me how dumb I'm being or what, like, you be my sage advice. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? I knew I had to get out. I kind of reached that point because I was in 3rd Battalion for 12 years almost when I got out. So it's kind of like that long in one place really is a bad choice.
Yeah.
I think like I should have gone to another battalion. Like, I don't think I should have got out of like the circulation because regular Army would be like the death of me. But I think I stayed there too long. Like that op tempo, that kind of like those deployments that you're never home, you're always on the road. It just kind of gets to you after a while. And we didn't do a good job taking care of ourselves or taking care of our buddies either.
Yeah, 100%. Because I remember, I think I've told you the West Point story before.
Let's hear it.
No, it would take too long.
Okay,
but
let's not hear it.
I'll just get to the point. Is I was supposed to go to West Point, and I didn't know. I didn't really want to go at first. And do you know Mike Rutledge?
Sounds familiar.
4th Battalion, 47 guy.
Is that the guy who's all over the internet now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Navy, former Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I see his face everywhere.
I was in 4th Battalion with Mike, and long story long is Mike was like, hey, come up, take permissive TDY, drive up here, and that's like basically we go on paid time off and come up, check out West Point. If you don't love this place, I'll pay for your gas. And so we went up, the whole family packed up the car in Savannah, drove to New York, toured West Point. Awesome.
Yeah.
Fell in love with it. Talked, the CG was commanding general. You're going to be the SP or like the chief pilot up here. And it was a done deal. And bottom line is one of the guys in the company failed his flight lead ride. And so they couldn't let me go. And that's the point I realized, like, I was emotionally broken, physically wrecked, and I needed a break. And I just decided this was, actually I did one more deployment and I was like, okay, I'm done. And you just kind of wake up and in hindsight, I would probably still be in the Army today if I would have went to West Point. I think I would have been able to like take a break. And so I kind of, that resonates with me when you say you should have moved. Is I spent my whole career trying to get away from moving, and then I got to a place where I didn't have to move, and then it actually probably
was worse for you.
Was worse.
Yeah.
So like I get why the Army moves people around every 3 years, and so I understand that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there's a bunch of other jobs too that I could have looked into, but it was too late, I think. Because I originally was going to get out in 2016, then Sergeant Major offered me a platoon sergeant job, so I was like, well, I can't pass that up. I get to be a platoon sergeant in Alpha Company. Like, yeah, I'll take it. So I stayed a little bit longer. And had I been able to, or had I had the foresight several years prior and found another thing, like maybe go up, be an FI at the schoolhouse for a couple of years and then go back out into Gen Pop. But you just can't get off the mission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to give up the mission. And then when I stopped, like as platoon sergeant, I stopped really flying a lot of them. And then the guys started flying all of them. So I was just kind of on the side like, hey, I got your bedroom and your food all put together. And I'll tuck the kids in at night. And then I watch them go off to war. And I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, you kind of get that like FOMO.
Yep, absolutely.
And boo-boo, and I still kind of struggle with that, like especially on LinkedIn, and I see stuff and people from the unit putting stuff up. I'm like, I wish I was there killing bad guys. But then I kind of think like, life is pretty awesome right now.
I'd be bitching and pissing and moaning about being there killing bad guys.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like miss the Army, but I miss
The dudes.
the people,
Yeah.
and I miss the work ethic, and I hate, it sounds elitist, but I miss excellence.
Yeah.
Like, and, but I think that's like, I'm assuming it was the same for you. Like when you get out, or when you got out, and you kind of get in the real world and you realize that you've been living in a fantasy world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that everybody else lives in reality.
Like there's always that joke, like our dumbest guy is better than your best.
Yeah.
Right? And it rings, and I hate to sound that way, like the elitist thing, but it rings so true. Like our worst people were still very capable people at what they did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were just unbelievably stupid, and we ended up getting rid of those guys. But there's also like the majority, 90% of the guys that you work with are like so unbelievably competent. Every day I went into work, and I was like, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
So
well, that's the whole thing about imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, it was a crazy place. And had I changed, I probably would have been able to retire. But I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I need to dip. And so part of my dip plan, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was like, I got to get out of here. I'll see what I can do. But my buddy was like, hey, man, you like coffee? Why don't you try starting a coffee company? And I remember we were in the car driving back from North Georgia. And I think by the following day or that weekend, I already had like an LLC set up. I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. I set up an LLC. I didn't have a coffee roaster. I didn't know how to do it. I had no idea what went into this whole thing.
Did you use any of those, like, what was that? SFL TAP, like, resources to like entrepreneurship?
So that was before
I
got to use any of that stuff, because I had a year and some change left before I got out of the Army. So I had started this. I was like, so I'm going to work on this while I get out. So it's like rolling forward, not like start day one out of the Army, but like I'm going to have something going by the time I get out, and it's going to be up and running.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't gone through any of the transition courses yet. I reached out to the local coffee roasters in Savannah, and I was like, hey, I emailed like 3 or 4 of them, made phone calls, and I was like, I'd like to learn. Like, I'll work for free. I can do, I'll work for free, whatever. Like, just teach me how to do this thing. I'll be an apprentice, so to speak. And only one of them reached out, and he's like, come meet me. It's Nigel at Savannah Coffee Roasters. And so I went down to the coffee shop, and I was like, hey, we talked a little bit. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to start a company. Let's be transparent about this. Like, the end result is me selling coffee. So let me, teach me how to do it. And he was like, absolutely. So he brought me back, and I worked there 3 or 4 days a week and for free. And he, initially I just started off packing, doing the labor in the back, like packing the shipments and all the other stuff. And then it turned into him teaching me about roasting. And then a few months of that, he was like, hey, you can use the roasters here, start roasting your stuff. And, you can sell, I'll pay you in green beans or whatever. And so,
green beans, like
unroasted coffee.
Yeah, not the Army green beans.
Not Afghani Iraq beans that blow right out your butthole.
Yeah. Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, green beans coffee was like a coffee shop at military bases in Iraq and Afghanistan. It actually wasn't horrible.
No, it was definitely a highlight of the day.
I'm pretty sure they got that water to make the coffee, like
from Poo Pond.
Yeah, like they had that Moac, mother of all coffees.
Woof.
Yeah,
I think it was like 4 shots of espresso and like 32 ounces of coffee.
I was at a green bean, not to like sidetrack, but I was at we had this guy in at the Green Bean in Balad, Iraq, and when we closed Iraq a year later, I was in Afghanistan in Kandahar, and that dude that was in Balad was in Kandahar, and he's like, my friend, like he totally remembered me, and I remembered him, and I don't remember his name. It's probably Muhammad, but like I was like, bro, how, like, what? You're from, and he just moved with the company from.
That's so wild.
Yeah, just totally random. But anyway, I think it's kind of, was the guy British, Nigel?
Nope. Oh. Just a really British name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, man, what American?
Nigel.
Yeah.
Hey, Nigel.
Yeah. Hello, governor. But so kind of going back to that is like, and we should circle back to this because that's like a mindset thing of like, I'm going to make my own way. And that's kind of what this podcast is about is nobody's going to help you.
Yeah.
You've got to do it yourself. And most people wouldn't think to just go kind of humble themselves and say, hey, I'll work for free. But I mean, the education you got from that is probably significant.
Yeah, it's setting me off on this path now I'm on 10 years later.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, let's come back to that, because how about when you so you got out, you started Polestar, and then you got out. How was that from then till now?
So Polestar died before I got out. So the story was we were going to move to Vermont, back to where both me and my wife are from, and we were going to set up shop there. I already had everything kind of set up in that area. I found a lady who was going to rent me a spot for $1 a square foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So things were moving, and so I was kind of able to bootstrap the company, so to speak, at that point, where I've made a little bit of money. I had like online subscriptions. I was in a couple of shops out west, and so things were kind of growing. I was in a couple of shops in Vermont, so I was like, okay, I've got a footprint across the country. You know, I got a jumping off point. But Katie had worked from home since she moved down to Georgia, and her company was like, yep, you can move wherever you want to, this, that, and the other, everything's going to be fine. And 3 weeks before I was supposed to go on terminal leave and we were supposed to move, her company said, you can't keep your job and move. So you can either quit and become a contractor, or you can stay in Georgia. I was like, well, shit. Now what are we going to do? So we talked about it, and she said, like, we both can't quit our jobs at the same time. You know, we can't have no income coming in. And so we're like, well, where can we move? And it's like, well, you can stay in Georgia, you can move to Florida, you can move back to DC, is where the company was based out of, or you can move out to Colorado. Like, those are the places, because they have to set up tax entities, essentially, if they have remote employees in different states. So every time an employee goes to a state,
it makes it worse for them.
Right. So they're like, we're not going to set up a new one for you. And I was like, shit. So we looked, I was like, well, I like Denver. So, you know, maybe we can't stay in Georgia. I'm sick of Georgia at this time. Like, I'm burnt out. I got to run away from this place. And like, let's move to Denver. And I was like, all right, we started doing the math. And I was like, it's going to cost me $500,000 to even get this thing possibly going in a super dense, overpopulated city that has a bunch of coffee. So Polestar dies right there. And I was like, okay, I'm getting out of the Army in 3 weeks. My backup plan is gone. Now what am I going to do? So it was like, you know, we said, fuck it. And we moved to Denver, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to school. So I was like, that'll buy me some time. I'll use the GI Bill. I'll go get a degree in something. I don't know. I'm not much of a scholar or an educated person. So, oh my God. So I started looking at schools, and I was like, all right, what am I interested in? What do I want to go to school for? And, I started racking my brain. I was like, all right, computer something or other, graphic design, game design, whatever. And I found, where did I apply to first? I think Colorado State, CSU. I applied, and then they're like, hey, you know, I went in and met the dude. No, that was after. I don't know. Either way, so I applied to that place. They wanted to shove some classes down my throat I wasn't going to pay for, and I told them I'm not going to take those classes. Like, well, you have to get a degree. I was like, all right, we'll go to a different school then, because I'm not going to take that class. And so then I applied to this school called the Art Institute, and it was something I wanted to go to ever since I was back in high school, doing all the courses that I did in school. I was like, all right, cool. The Art Institute would be pretty neat for like game design or something.
Yeah. So
I apply. I go down, do all this paperwork, do the walk around. I was like, all right, this is great. I was like, all right, cool. Things are, you know, moving forward. I'll have a paycheck in 6 months. Like, all right, cool. Denver's not cheap. And so like, hey, come back in 3 days. We'll do all the financial stuff, and then you'll start schools next semester. I was like, all right, cool. So I drive in that day to go do the financial stuff, and I'm waiting in the lobby, and they're like, all right, cool. I'm like, all right, blah, 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 blah. And we've probably been in Denver about a month at this point, I think. And guy comes downstairs. He's like, hey, you're the new students? It was me and like 2 or 3 other people. I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, come with me. So we walk into this back room. He's like, hate to break it to you, but the school's closing. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, so what does that mean? I was like, no more semesters, or like it closes soon are you guys running a couple more? Like, can I get a couple classes in? He's like, no, we're not taking any new students. The school's closing. I was like, okay. So plan F is dead in the water. I was like, all right, now what am I going to do? So I went out in the car in the parking lot and had a moment, and then looked up another school, applied to that school. I was sitting in the car, and then they called me the same day, and then I went like the following week, and I ended up getting into that school, and I went there for about a year. But yeah, that was my immediate transition into civilian life.
Yeah. I think for me, like I've kind of been in that situation, although probably not as like, dire straits.
Yeah, I felt pretty desperate at that point.
Yeah. Was there any point that you thought like I should just go back to the Army?
Yeah, that came in 2019 because there was a couple more, let's say, setbacks. Or we can even talk about the Army transition stuff if you want to. Or I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, whatever you want to talk about. I mean, like whatever you think, people. Usually I feel like people can relate to things like this because everybody has some version of this. Like, you hear on all these podcasts about, I'm going to tell you how I 10x'd it and I made $1 million bajillion dollars. Like, that shit is not real life,
I
man.
0.78x'd the shit out of this.
Yeah.
I got less back than what I put in.
Yeah, like I've started 3 businesses and they all failed.
Right.
Except, the third one I don't really make any money. It's more of I make enough money to keep the IRS off my back.
Yeah.
But like, it's not, and that's kind of like this podcast. This podcast isn't really for anybody else. It's really for me. This is like my form of like, I don't want to pay a psychologist, so I can do it this way.
And the other thing is like, would we even have this, like, not that we wouldn't have this conversation, but to be able to set a time aside to be like, hey, we're just going to sit down and talk, right? Like, if we didn't have this time set aside, I wouldn't have come back to work at fucking 6 to sit down and talk.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're logging this time.
Yeah. Hourly.
JK company.
Yeah. Love you, kisses.
But I think for me, like in those times of like helplessness, I guess is probably not the best word, but
that's pretty accurate.
Where you figure like you almost kind of make rush decisions because you have to do something.
Everything's a reaction, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, we need money. I am still like not willing to go apply to GNC, although that comes later. I'm like, hey, my first month out of this, I'm like, all right, I have a chance to make something, right? I'm still in the mindset like, okay, I still have this opportunity. I can feel deep inside, I know that I'm fucked, or things aren't going well and things are going like, have the potential to get far worse. Right. Because now, like I said, how many plans have gone through the cracks now? We're 2 months out of being out of the Army and nothing has gone right. I don't have any of my friends, no family out there, no more war, no more anything. You're on an island. Once you leave, you become isolated essentially. So
yeah.
You're like,
and it's hard to relate to everybody else.
Yeah.
Because they don't have those same experiences. They don't, they just, you see things through a different lens. And, like my wife always, why don't you be friends with such and such a dude? Because like when I talk to him, he's not going to have any idea. He's not going to understand the little inside.
Or like I say some pretty wild stuff from time to time that you've probably noticed that like, I feel like I have to censor myself in public, especially in an office setting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't speak. Like speak when spoken to, look at the floor, don't make eye contact, and I won't get fired.
Yeah.
But the only people, it's not funny, but I ended up in another art school, and there was an art exhibit. What they do is this school will take refugees from different countries, Africa, Middle East, Asia, Europe, right? And they will give them discounted or free courses in certain things, right? Like, hey, if you want to do photography, welcome to America, we'll try to hook you up. And it was pretty cool. They put on an exhibit with all these refugees, and it was, they had all their artwork up, and I went and walked around it, and it was letters to yourself before you came to America. So they wrote a letter, had some pictures, And then they had letters to themselves. And literally every one of those letters was, I'm happy to be here. This place has amazing things and it can offer you such great, opportunities. These opportunities are amazing and you can do almost anything you want. It's like, but nobody has time to be your friend.
Yeah.
Like there's no, and literally the common thread through all these, whether they're from Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria or, Nigeria or Ethiopia or wherever, they were just kind of like, man, I miss home because there was a community.
Right.
This country has no community.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through all my stuff and I'm sitting there like, I have more in common with this, 21-year-old girl from Afghanistan than anybody else in this college.
Yeah.
I was like, man. But
yeah, I think that's really true in general, because you get so busy with just everything, and like our culture. Yeah, and there's two sides to that.
Sure.
One side of that is, when you really kind of break it down, and when you're in that situation where you're on plan F and everything's going to, like, at the end of the day, when you zoom out and you think, you know what, like, we shit in cleaner water than most people drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you're always going to figure out, generally, like, I'm sure there's some people that have fallen on hard times, but you're going to be out of the elements. You're going to be able to eat food. It might not be what you want. It might be like ramen noodles or something, but like you got food. So when you kind of really zoom out and think about it, life is pretty good, but then the other side of that is the American part kicks in, where you don't have Netflix and you don't have all the things. And, I think there's some kind of like line between working all the time and having the money to do all those things that you're air quotes supposed to do, with being happy and just hanging out and making enough money, but having friends and do it. But the problem is you got to find other people that are willing to
take that time,
be in that place too. And that's because everybody's like at a different point in their life. And especially like when you get out of the military, you're like adrift in a sea of, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to find people that kind of have gone through that or going through that. So yeah, I totally get it. Like, that makes sense.
And I think like burning all your time working, like what's the point if there's no human connection, right? Like you can get through, if you think about all the shitty times you had in the Army, you're like, man, they were pretty bad, but there's always like that little nugget of awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Or the, like, oh, that was pretty bad, but at least I had the dudes with me, or, you had that thing. But then when you get out into the sea of whatever's going on out here, you don't have that. So you don't have like everybody ebbs and flows, right? And then, you kind of don't want to open up to your family about it, because now you're what happens if you're the guy who's always behind at work, right? If you are the worst pilot, right? What happens? You get fired.
Yeah.
If you're the worst crew chief, if you're a burden to the guys in the cockpit, if you're a burden to the ground force, you don't have a job anymore, right? So you're not going to speak up and be like, hey, I'm struggling. You're going to suck it up like we both did.
Yeah.
And then ended up creating the crash for ourselves, right? And you pack it away because you don't want to be the burden. The burden gets axed.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't want to go home and be like, hey, babe, I'm having a rough time. Like, this sucks. Because, now you're the burden. You're the dude who's going to get axed because there's no use for you. And I think that kind of plays into it too.
Yeah, I think too, you don't have the, there's not that network to kind of, because like you can kind of play it off in a team setting because
everybody picks everybody up.
Yeah, and you can kind of, I don't want to say go on autopilot, but like you can kind of play the part and kind of just muddle through until you're better again.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much of that. And I thought Special Operations Command did a pretty good thing with instituting the, it started right well, I guess it was going pretty good. The embedded behavioral health, we had the psychologist,
Yeah.
Dr. Jenna Brown
Yep.
Morgan. She was awesome, and she's still there. But I think so many people kind of discount that mental health, just having conversations. Because I would, flight leads had to go not once a month, but they had to go like twice a year maybe for like your OER or something. Yep. And I ended up, I remember I had called her one day because somebody else, I can't remember who it was. Somebody else was like, hey, you should, I went and saw her, and it kind of helped. And I was like, I was super stressed out about something, and I went, and she was, and I remember I called, and I said, hey, she answered the phone, which was weird that the actual doctor answered the phone. But I said, hey, I'm trying to get an appointment. And she said, well, we don't really have anything available for 3, like typical. And I just kind of lost my shit. And I was like, it's so fucking typical. Like,
you're here to help, but
you're
here
to
not
help,
here.
but you're never, and she was like, hey, hold on. She's like, where are you right now? And I'm like, I'm at the hangar. And she was like, okay, come over. And like literally like an hour later, I was in there talking to her, and she like stayed late or whatever. But bottom line is, you don't have access to that stuff when you get out, and how was that? Like, how did you cope with not having that like sense of purpose? Or I don't know if you didn't have a sense of purpose, but I kind of felt like I didn't.
No, man, I was failing at everything, right? Like, hey, you go from being on what I'd consider like the mountain peak, right? Like, I always kind of equated our deployments or our job to the Super Bowl, right? So, I'm a 13-time Super Bowl champ, right? And so once you leave the Super Bowl behind, I'm not Tom Brady. I'm like the defensive guy in the corner that nobody knows the name of, but he's got a ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you leave and you're like, all right, cool. I was on the field with all the lights, and now I'm like in an art school with a bunch of art kids, or I can't get a job. No one will hire me. I don't have any qualifications, or everything's a swing and a miss. And you're just like, man, I'm not used to like swinging out for this long,
Yeah.
So it was pretty tough.
Yeah. That, I think too, like, not that it has directly to do with that, but the way that we deployed, which there wasn't like the big band and then the big send off and then come back.
No, you bum a ride from your friend so you can get home in the middle of the night and don't wake your wife and kids up.
Yeah. And then I remember like, it'd be like, I get home like a Thursday night, and like literally the night before, getting shot up, shit blowing up all over the place. And then, 26 hours later, we're going to Chuck E. Cheese, and like talk about like a mind fuck.
It was overwhelming, and it was kind of those weird things, like ending up and doing that frequently. Like even still, like if I would come home, even after that, my last deployment in 2015, I came home. I've done it so many times at that point, but like just even going to the grocery store was like a mind fuck. It was just kind of like, okay, like everything's coming so fast, everything's so like everywhere.
Yeah, I thought for me, like the deployments was like easy mode.
Yeah.
Like everything was kind of mapped out. You knew.
Camping with the boys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. And everything was very structured. I mean, not when you're on the target, but everything leading up to that. And that's why, going way off the script here, but people would always ask me like, hey, how come you didn't want to fly like Apaches or Little Birds? And my answer was the first time I did an air assault, and I realized like I was totally not in control of anything.
Yeah.
I felt like this is the most alive I've ever felt. Because when you hit the release part, the release point to go and land on the target, like you don't really have a vote. You're ultra vulnerable, and it's like going on a roller coaster and putting your hands up,
with no lap belt.
With no lap belt, and with like sheet metal protecting you from everything,
and somebody shooting at you.
Yeah, and I was like, this is awesome. I want more of this. And it's like, it's literally like 30 seconds. That's it, maybe a minute. And then, everything's quiet again. And for me, I was like, this is, your butthole puckers up, and that's kind of what you were talking about. You did it with your friends, and there's a lot of I don't want to say pride in doing shitty things, but like, when I was in the infantry, it was like a badge of honor to do shitty things. Like, we stayed out in the field for 20 days and it sucked so bad. But like at the time it really did suck. I hated it. And then like later though, I'd be like bragging to, oh yeah, I'm harder than you, just, and so I think there's a level of that in the Army when you get out. And for something that I deal with, it actually happened today that I dealt with. I went to drop some dry cleaning off, and I had my son's Civil Air Patrol uniform. And the lady had no idea what Civil Air Patrol was, and I explained to her it's like kids, and it's like a Air Force auxiliary, and they kind of help with humanitarian, disaster relief stuff. And she was like, "Oh my God, that must be so scary, like being a helicopter over." A hurricane. And I was like, does she think that they're like actually in the hurricane?
This 15-year-old kid's flying a helicopter through the eye of the storm.
And then you kind of realize like the general population has no idea what folks do in the military, let alone war, because you watch a movie about war and it's like 2 hours of like action.
Right.
And it's probably like the least, you see all these people, I would see guys like, Desert Storm vet hats or Korea vet hat. And then when I was a kid, I was like, that guy was in the shit. And then like now as I'm older, I'm like, that guy was probably like a postal clerk on a base somewhere. Like the chances of him being like a ground guy and like really in the shit is like really small. And
isn't it something like less than 10% of the people who even went to Iraq and Afghanistan saw combat?
Like ever left the...
Right. I think it's something like less than 10. Yeah. The number is like some astronomically small number, and you're like, oh shit, like that's...
Yeah. And I'm not taking anything away from that. It sounds, again, like we're being elitist, and I'm not at all. Like those people get mortared, and like they really don't have a choice. Like at least we're kind of making some decisions out there. But I always I remember, the first time taking off out of Iraq, and I was so scared and excited, and I remember thinking like, man, all these people have to sit here on this little compound in the middle of the desert, and like at least we get to go out and see the countryside, and our experiences aren't as crazy as like the ground guys that are going on like physically on the target. But I think that all kind of comes back to this sense of purpose. And so I kind of want to move into I still haven't figured this sense of purpose out, but so you did I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You kind of got into the Guard, and then that didn't really
pan out. It was at a bad time.
Yeah.
So I'd signed my contract January 2020, and then the country shuts down, right? Because I'd found like I was going to school, I was working at a gun shop, I was doing some of that stuff, teaching a little bit of shooting on the side at the place, nothing crazy. And I was like, man, I just want to be back with the boys. You know what I mean? Shit's still going on in Syria. I think Soleimani just got blown up, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going back. Like, and I talked to Katie about it, and I was like, hey, I think like, I'm still young, I'm 36 or whatever. I was like, I think like I want to go back. And she's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, let's figure it out. And so I walked into the Guard recruiting office and the recruiter there was a regiment dude. He's like, hey, what are you looking to do? I was like, oh, I'm trying to maybe go do helicopters. And he's like, oh, cool. Where are you? I was like, oh, 160th. And he's like, all right. Oh, man, me too. He was up a Campbell dude or whatever. And he's like, have you ever thought about SF? And I was like, well, yeah. He's like, well, we got, 19th group is out here. And once you come, what do you think about that? I can take you out to the compound. You can meet the dudes. They have this little pre-selection thing. Check it out. I was like, all right, that sounds like fun. I was like, that sounds better than what I want to do. Because I really didn't want to go back into the helicopter thing. I kind of lost my interest in flying, especially if it wasn't going to be, with the dudes again.
Yeah.
So there's no like I'm not an aviation guy, right? Like
Right.
I'm also not a Chinook guy. Like I'm a regiment dude. Like
Yeah.
I like to, if we're gonna go do something, like let's go hard and let's go do some shit. So I don't like ring routes. I don't like sling loads. I don't like cargo. I just don't care. Like if I don't have a machine gun and there's not people going out there to slay, I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, let me try the SF thing. So I went out there, met the dudes. We had a good conversation, good interview. They said, come on, we'll take you on. Obviously the selection stuff and all that. So I went, signed the contract January 2020. The country shuts down, and I had like a pre-selection date. They put you through this weekend of torture. It was actually really shitty, really, really, really shitty. And the date kept getting pushed. So I've been like training and rucking and all this other stuff. So I'm just like trying to follow this peak. So it gets pushed from February to March to April to May to June. And meanwhile, I don't have a job.
Yeah.
Right. Because I thought this was going to take off in February.
And you'd at least be getting a paycheck.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so now I'm only getting guard paycheck. The country shuts down. My job I was kind of working at cut me to 3 hours. They wouldn't fire me so I could get unemployment. So I had to quit because my daughter got taken out of school. And Katie was still working because she can work from home.
Right.
So I had to do the school stuff for my daughter. I couldn't work initially. And then plus everything was closed. So nobody was hiring because there was nothing open. And so now we're still, rent still costs what it does in Denver or at the outside of Denver. So we're hemorrhaging money. By this time, I'd already blown through all of our savings. I'd emptied my retirement. We're now in debt.
Yeah.
Right. We're pulling in credit card debt because we're both still trying to pretend that things are okay.
Right.
And they're wildly not. And so I kind of like, not really full on injure myself, but like my knees are starting to hurt. Like I can't really run that well anymore. So by the time I get to go do this pre-selection thing, I missed the ruck by like 4 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
So that's just me being a baby. Like I was feeling sorry for myself, and then they beat us up for the rest of the next 3 or 4 days or whatever it was. So they're like, hey, you need to come back in 3 weeks. I was like, dude, I can't even walk. I couldn't walk by the end of this thing.
Right.
It was so trashed. Like come back in 3 weeks, try again. I was like, okay. I came back in 3 weeks, knocked like 40 minutes off my ruck, and then you're good to go. But at this time,
you missed it by 4 minutes, and then you knocked 40 off?
Like 30 or 40, something like that.
Yeah, no big deal. 40 minutes.
I was like, suck it up, don't be a baby.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to do like, and again, the abuse that they put you through was so miserable that I didn't want to do it again.
Did you just have to do the ruck, or did you have to do the whole thing?
And I didn't want to go. So in between that, this kind of sets up the move to Vermont. We went back to visit Katie's grandfather who was sick, and he's in Maine, right? And so our family's in Vermont, he's in Maine. And we spent like a week there, a couple days, or a weekend. It was at my brother's place, and it was so quiet. It's so like middle of summer too. Green, quiet, country living. I was like, man, like Denver's on fire from the riots. I can't get any work. Like things aren't going well out there. It costs so much money to live there. And it's like, let's move back here. Let's see what the job market looks like, right? And that's how I got the job. I just applied to that maple syrup company immediately, and they called me back like same day. I was like, hey, I'm living out here. And I talked to the dudes in 19th group, like, yeah, you don't have to live here. You can live anywhere in the country, and then when training pops up, you show up. And we'll pay you. You get like a travel stipend, like $500 or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty sick. So I can live in Vermont and then still go back and do that. It's like, cool. So got the job in Vermont, went back, did the next pre-assessment. That's when I knocked the time off. Then moved like 2 weeks later.
Did you like pack all your stuff in a U-Haul and just drive cross country?
Yeah, we threw a bunch of stuff away. I put whatever we could fit in a 16-footer, and we drove it from Colorado to Vermont.
Cool.
Yeah, it was miserable. It was 3 days.
Yeah.
And so, all right, cool. So they're like, all right, let's plan your selection date for September or whatever. I was like, all right. And I get this job, and the job turns out to be pretty intense. It was pretty wild. A little bit of logging, a lot of like, we had a 2,000 acre plot. We were trying to tap like 55,000 trees on. And so now I'm learning about the maple syrup game and trying to juggle some SF things.
And for the record, it's syrup.
Not syrup.
Yeah.
Syrup.
Everybody heard it from a Vermont local.
It's in my blood. So yeah, that's how we moved to Vermont, and then took that job on. Ended up after that sugar in season. During the season, I ended up working like 100-hour weeks. So like through this whole period of time, what I'm not saying is like I'm still falling apart.
Yeah.
I'm still not doing what I want to do. I'm not where I want to be.
Yeah, you just kind of replace it with just working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, I'll just go hard at something, because I knew even on my lowest day, like there were points where I just would rather be dead for that whole thing. I was like, I'm nothing. I'm not producing anything for the family. Like I can't. Like I'm a burden.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm being a burden to myself. I'm a burden to my wife. I'm not somebody that my kid can look up to. I'm not a useful human. And that was kind of like, and we're 2.5 years out of the Army, and it's still like, and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Like it's not getting better yet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, I'll just work, because the owner was like, hey, you're not as dumb as some other people out here.
Like you showed up with like 1 ounce of like work ethic. You're already head and shoulders above everybody else.
On time.
Yeah, on time, and you don't look like a bum, and Yeah.
And I got like 3 raises that year, and it was in like 4 months I got 3 raises. Like, oh my God, like here's a raise. Like, oh wow, you're still working. Here's a raise. And then I got to the point where I was working time and a half at 100 hours a week. So like by Monday I was hitting overtime, and I just wouldn't go home. So I would get hammered. I'd put down a 15 rack of beer, and I'd sleep on the concrete floor in the woods because I was just kind of ashamed to go home. And then, fast forward a few more. I worked there through the summer, and then in fall I had to leave that place because I just couldn't do it anymore. And then I got a job at another gun shop, did that for a little bit. And then I couldn't do that anymore. Somewhere in there, I was kind of going to school online too, collecting a little bit of BAH working, and then started a little farm at the house because we had acreage. And then quit the gun shop, got a job at a Norwich University in the IT department. And then I was on my computer one night about 2 months after. In that time period also, the family had completely come apart at some point before I left Run Amok, the maple syrup place. And that was part of the reason for me leaving. And then I had to kind of try to put that back together as best as I could. And got a job at Norwich. And that's when I went to the gun shop. And then when I got the job at Norwich, Katie's father had passed away. And so like in the middle of us trying to put our shit back together, her dad passes away. Like, all right, cool. We'll sort through all that. We'll just put it on there, put it on the pile. And then that was the first week of me at my new job. So I was like, hey guys, I need to take some time off. I got to go take care of this. I was like, all right. And they're like, hey, they were great about it. There's no issues. And then I come back to work. First day back at work, we'll call her, her stepmom for all intents and purposes, who was living with her dad at the time, had a stroke.
Oh, jeez.
So I get a call while I'm at work, and I was like, hey guys, I have to go again. Like, because Katie had found her on the floor of the house when she went to go up and check on her. Right? And that's 2 hours away from where we lived, and I worked an hour away from where we lived.
Right.
So it was like, all right, I got to go. I had to drive up to Newport. And so then we started dealing with that, and then it was in and out of the hospital, and she ended up moving in with us for a little bit, and trying to figure out what we're gonna do and how, like, she can't drive, she can't take care of herself, like, so that's another thing that we're trying to sort through. And then I hop on the computer and I see your post, and then enter our secondary connection, and I was like, man, there's no way I can take this job. I don't even know if I was looking for that job. I was like, hey, what's this all about? And you're like, oh yeah, boom, this is February last year, so 2023. Yeah.
Was it 23?
Yeah, it was 23.
Holy shit.
February.
It feels like it was a lot longer than that.
No. And you're like, yeah, well, just send me a resume. I was like, man, there's no way I can move to Florida. I can sell my house, my farm, get rid of my goats and my chickens, and move to Florida. And like, when are you looking for something? Like April. I was like, in a month. There's no way I can do that in a month. And you're like, don't worry about it. Let's just see what happens. And then a day and a half later, I'm still, 3 months into my new job. And I took the job, and I sold my house and the goats and all the chickens.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yep. in
Yeah.
about a month.
and then you had to get here and you had to go do your A&P certification.
Yeah.
Which was kind of
A fiasco.
Yeah.
In and of itself.
But you got it done.
Did.
And so now, so that kind of, that kind of brings us up to still, what's that?
So those are the cliff notes, by the way.
Yeah, that's the cliff notes. Like there's probably a lot more, but that, I think still, and we've kind of talked about this before, is there's still that sense of purpose. And you actually kind of brought it up to me as a, because we complain a lot about work and that I think that's normal, especially for soldiers. They just
once you stop bitching, there's an issue.
Yeah,
like a real problem.
Yeah, and I think you had said like, hey, why? I was talking about overtime and all this effort and I've kind of like been really thinking about this lately. Is you work at a place, a corporate job, and you do all this stuff for somebody else to get rich, and you had said something like, hey, why don't you just kind of do your time to make a living, but put your effort and get your sense of purpose from something else. So that you'd kind of started doing this adventure race stuff.
Yeah.
And has that kind of filled a void at all, or where are you at with that?
So the adventures race thing was pretty cool. It's something I've been into and looking at for a while, but I'd never done it. And then one of my buddies from regiment, Keith, he came down to visit me here, and he's like, hey, dude, because this job actually affords me time to do my thing. And then when we left, the big thing was when we left Vermont, we made money on our house because it was the housing market thing. And so we were able to clear out all of our debt, everything that we had accumulated over the past 4 years up to that point. We were able to clear it all out and then come down here with a cushion. So we were like in a new place, somewhat of a new lease on life, a job that I'm familiar with people I'm familiar with, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I can breathe a little bit again. Purpose, maybe not coming into the picture, but the people are right.
Maybe you thought there might be a little bit of purpose in here, and then you kind of see behind the curtain, you're like,
I'd hoped.
We're not. It's never going to go back to that.
No, but the people are right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can do anything if you have the right people.
Right.
And maybe they don't want our talents, and that's up to them. But,
yeah.
So he came to visit me, and we were talking. He's like, hey, I tried this adventure race with this guy, and he quit on me halfway through, and it was a 3-day adventure race. And he's like, we should do adventure racing. He's like, you like to do dumb stuff, and you don't mind suffering a little bit. I was like, I absolutely don't mind suffering. As a matter of fact, that's really the only thing I'm good at. That's my single unique talent.
Yeah,
is putting up with dumb shit. And so we signed up, or we found a race, we signed up for it, and we were trying to get one of our other buddies in. He didn't end up coming doing it, but I grabbed one of my buddies from back in Vermont, and I was like, hey, dude, we're going to go do this thing. I know he was a Marine, so he's into the same kind of stuff that we're into. And I was like, maybe you want to come do this? And so I was like, yeah. So we started a little 3-man team, and Keith had the name Flow State Endurance, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we had T-shirts? So like, yeah, cool. Like, so I had this dude drop a logo, pretty sweet, and we did our first 10-hour race, and it was a lot of fun. And there's a little bit of suffering, and there's like a learning curve to it too, right? So it's not just like, can we go out and do this? But like, we want to do well. There's land nav involved in it. Like, we all have land nav backgrounds, so we can apply skills that we learned that we like to use. And we were able to run through that course, be middle of the pack. So obviously when you get 3 dudes together who are used to doing pretty good at stuff, find you're in the middle of the pack of like people who are like 60, you know what I mean? You're like, oh my God, I gotta.
Yeah, but you got to put it into context. You guys went from like the panhandle of Florida to St. Augustine, right?
No, that first race, the 10-hour race was in North Georgia.
Okay.
And then, so the eye on the prize was there's a 3-hour race, or 3-day race running from the left side of Florida to the right side of Florida. And it changes every year.
And not the skinny part.
No.
Like the wide part.
Yeah. It's a 3-day, 300, 400 mile race. And once you get dropped off on the left-hand side and they say go, the gun goes off, and then you've got 3 days to make it to St. Augustine, and you cover, an ungodly amount of time. But Keith had his partner at the time quit halfway through that race. Because he realized they weren't going to get all the points, right? Because there's 72 points you got to find.
Yeah.
And they missed one. And he was like, nope, I'm done. This is stupid. And so Keith found somebody who's dumb enough to go do it.
So you guys have done the North Georgia one, the Florida one, and what's the next one? Don't you have one coming up?
We do have one coming up. I did a solo last October. It was an 8-hour.
Yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
ended up coming in first place. Pretty sweet.
No big deal.
No big deal. And so yeah, we have it's not an adventure race, so it's another charity. So we did the Florida race, and we got paired with Guardian Revival. And so they sponsored us to go do this race, and in turn we raised money for them. So it was kind of fun to attach, so adding purpose into the adventure racing, like, hey, they do a lot of work with veterans and first responders. And this is our chance to be a part of their program and to kind of give back in the same way, that we could before, right? So you're giving back to your community, your friends, and you're in a way that is suffering. So kind of fun, but miserable all at the same time. But we also, after that, we got, I'll say picked up, but we're doing a similar event for the Allied Forces Foundation. Danny was the one that put us in contact with his buddy.
Yeah, he told me about that. That's Danny Archer, a.k.a. Meat Plow, a former 160th alum.
Enlisted, commissioned.
Yeah.
warrant.
Yeah, we should do a podcast with him because the first time I ever met him was at Kevin Barry's, and it was during remember he used to do that auction during
the
Wanza,
yeah.
and which is week of no scheduled activities. It's really original. And so our unit would basically just fuck off for a week, and we'd play sports, and Charlie Company would always get destroyed by A and B Company in softball.
That's right.
Although we had a few guys with like Wellington and that Dominican guy, that supply guy. God, what was that dude's name? He was really good, Big Poppy. But the first time I met Archer, he was the MC of this. What do you call that?
The dining in.
The
auction. Yeah.
And there's all these like kind of, aristocratic old Savannah money in there.
Yeah.
And he's up there just F-bombing and just talking like an E3 on a Saturday night. And these old ladies, these old blue hairs are loving it. They're just eating. And I'm like, shit, somebody pull him off get him off. And he, I don't know how he does it, but he just does.
Yeah.
But
he got away with it.
Yeah, he got away with it. And so, this guy went enlisted to commission officer.
He's a ranger.
Enlisted, and 175 maybe in Savannah, maybe?
Yeah,
or was
maybe,
he?
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to ask him. And then commission, pilot, and then he went to be a warrant officer.
Yep.
And then he was a Blackhawk guy first. Then he went to Chinooks, and then he went back to Blackhawks, and then back to Chinooks. So, anyways, so that's Scotland, right?
Yeah. So the Allied Forces Foundation, it's a similar thing. We're going to go do a 24-hour ruck. 54 miles is the goal, right?
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a free trip to Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody's I'll do a lot of stuff.
How many miles is it?
54, over hills and micro mountains and whatever.
Yeah.
I won't say whatever. I saw the incline on one of the legs was like 24%. That's like your nose is touching it when you're standing up.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, it's whatever. We'll find out.
Yeah.
And so that Allied Forces Foundation is sending us there, and in turn, I think we're going to try to raise some money for them as well.
So, how do people give money?
So we have our Guardian Revival page is still up. And we've got a Instagram. I don't think we have a Facebook.
Do people still use Facebook? Do you have Facebook?
I had to start another one for the coffee company.
Oh, okay.
I hate Facebook. I hate it. But yeah, it's just it's weird. It's just a small town. It's just a bunch of weird small town stuff happens on there, and it feels,
my wife has it, and
feels icky.
Yeah, it's like replaced Craigslist, I think, for marketplace.
Yeah, and weird people.
I didn't know that Craigslist was still around, and I went on there the other day, and it's really weird.
Yeah,
on
it's gotten
Craigslist.
stranger.
Yeah, but
yeah, Flow State Endurance is on Instagram under Flow State Endurance, and then you can find me at the Baloney Rancher.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can. And it's misspelled. So misspelled baloney, and that's the way to spell it. But And we also have a website, flowstateendurance.com, and on there you'll find one of the donation pages. And once the donation pages come out for the Catamaran Yomp is what it's called. I think we'll have donation pages coming out for those here shortly. And once those, we'll put those up on the website too.
All right. So I think to kind of, that's a lot in an hour, but I think for me, like I always feel better when I talk about stuff like this, and part of this podcast is about real people with real issues, and I don't want to say real solutions, because what works for you might not work for somebody else, but it's at least gives them like a bit of a roadmap to that. So kind of what you were talking about is giving you the time to do something. That's what I do like about this job. I mean, like, it's super frustrating because it's not the way it was, but you can also just not give a shit and show up and do the bare minimum. Like we were talking about today, like, we're the dumb ones.
We're the assholes.
We're the ones for putting 120% into something that nobody else cares. And my wife sent me this, like some TikTok, and this guy was talking about parents that raise their kids to be good people, and parents. Did I send you that?
No.
And parents that raise their kids to be winners, and it's kind of counterintuitive. You would think that the goal is to raise good people. The problem with good people is you're like this, and I'm like this too, is when somebody asks you for something that should be a very clear boundary where you should say no. Right. You end up, I just find myself saying yes, even though my head is like, no, fuck, no, don't do that. I
absolutely don't want to do it.
Like, no, I don't want to, help you move to California on Saturday. Like,
but I'm there.
But you're going to do it. And so, but what happens is, over the years of not having boundaries and always putting other people before you, is it actually takes years off of your life.
Right.
And if you're miserable and you are tired and burnt out, you can't be the best version of you. And if you're not the best version of you, you can't be the best for your kid. Like, it has this cascading thing. And his whole point was you don't have to be an asshole. You just have to set clear boundaries. And so, how many times has somebody insulted you because of the culture or where we live, you just kind of like don't say anything, but then, or you don't have a good comeback. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, damn it, I got the perfect comeback right now, because or somebody is rude to you. You're kind of just stunned, and you don't know. But then you're pissed off, and the rest of your day sucks because of what somebody else.
It plays over and over in your head.
Yeah. And you're like, you let that affect you. Whereas and this guy's point was, if you raise winners, those kinds of things, because they're adept at setting boundaries, and when somebody crosses those lines, they don't hesitate to push back, and then they just go on with their day, and it doesn't even faze them.
Well, I think there was a thing I came across while I was going to school, and I'm sure a ton of people have found it too. Philosophy, right? It's a Stoic philosophy, and I don't have any magical quotes or anything, but it was all very like, control the things that you can control. If it's out of your control, like say, you come across an asshole or someone's just completely stupid or whatever, like, you're the person who lets it affect you, right? And it's obviously way easier said than done, but it's, it's an ongoing practice. It's a reminder of like, hey, we need you to do all this shit, but we don't care the outcome. Like, okay, well, if I'm here from, 7 to 3 and you ask me to do whatever, like, I don't care if you take my advice or if you don't take my advice, right? Because I did my part. I gave you the thing. I'm not going to get emotional over your decisions. Like, my job is to give you options, and if you don't like any of the options I give you, rooted in fact, then whatever.
That's a pretty good. I never really thought about it until you just said that, but that kind of makes me think that, and this is kind of for me, is if you're here for 8 hours a day and I get, you see me all the time frustrated about something. It really doesn't fucking matter. Like,
Right.
none of this really matters. That's an ego thing. Like, I need to be the big dog that says, you didn't listen to my advice. And
Right.
at the end of the day, who cares? We'll hit that 8 hours and just clock right out and collect my money and be on my way.
Like, you hired me because of my resume and my skills that I have acquired over the years. And then when you ask me for my input based off my experience, and then you completely ignore everything I'm saying or tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, or that's impossible, it'll never work that way. It's like, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to be like, no, I mean, that's just how I used to do it. Or that's, I'm not saying it's the best way to do it. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but you asked me for my input. This is how we did it. And it worked extremely well. I'm open to new ideas, but if you don't care at all, then I don't care, right? Because we're the people who assign good or bad.
Right.
Right. Everything is just inherently as it is. And if you look at something, in certain cultures, we look at things that people do and we're like, oh, that's weird and that's bad. But really, it's just us assigning our preconceived notions to this thing. Like, oh, well, I was told that's bad. I'm going to assign bad to it. And then I'm going to attach bad to my emotions for the day.
Yeah. I think that kind of leads me to another point about kind of entrepreneurship and mindset that I kind of wanted to circle back to that. Like, you went to that guy Nigel and said, hey, I want to learn to roast coffee, because now you've got Polestar's back.
Yep.
And staging out here in Central Florida.
Yes, sir.
And I think that goes back to that mindset of having the to not get emotional about things, and also, like I struggle with this all the time. Like, I would love to just be able to quit this job and start a business, but culturally we're taught to do the safe thing, to be
a good worker, sit there and color,
collect the check,
pay your taxes,
get Netflix, get a iPhone, all the things. But then every now and again you see these people, and it's probably exacerbated on social media, but they like sell all their stuff and live in a van down by the river. And why I think that sounds kind of good for like a day or two. It's not me, but I aspire to do something like that where I could just be like, man, fuck it.
Well, I think there's a big thing in our country to where it's like, hey, say no to first world comforts. And it's like, it's this big thing like, hey, this is how to be a man. Everything's about how to be a man. Like, you got to give up all this stuff. You got to get up and you got to do this and you got to say no to your friends and you got to 10X it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the reality is you don't have to do any of that stuff, and you don't have to give up your bed or your couch. Like, I like having a comfy bed. Yeah. I like having a big TV. And that's not inherently wrong. If you have 17 big TVs, like, maybe we've come across an issue. But if you're like, hey, I spend my day-to-day doing shit for somebody else, and if I want to have a TV and, at night if I don't watch a movie before bed, like, that's not a bad thing. If I want to have a slice of pie, it's not a bad thing. If I want to have a beer, it's not a bad thing. It's like when you just start cramming and, like, all you do is watch TV, drink a bunch of beer, and eat a bunch of pie, right? Like, there's an issue. But, like, you just being like, hey, you can live inside these first world comforts. It's all right. It's okay. That's the whole point of this whole thing, right?
Right.
It's like, but don't give up your life to have those first world comforts.
Yeah. Do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
Like, I used to be a huge Gary V fan. And then, like, the more and more, and I'm not trashing Gary V. Like, he was a hero of mine for a long time.
Yeah, mine too. But same.
But, like, he's kind of walked it back a little bit now, but he used to be like, you got to get out there and, you got to
sell your fucking spoons.
Yeah. And you're, you get 5 hours of sleep. And the truth is, especially now that I'm older, like, man, I need to sleep. Yeah. Like, I'm tired and those kinds of things. So there, Grant Cardone and like 10X, his 10X whole thing. Like, I read that book and at first I was like, real estate, I'm going to go do, and then, but then I'm like, but I also like time. Like for me, the biggest thing is time.
Right.
Like I just want to have time to do the things I want to do, but I don't know the thing I want to do because I never have the time
Right.
to know what I want to do.
And then you have been so devoid of having your own time that when you finally get a day or two, it's just usually kind of spent like listless.
Yeah.
You're
Like
just,
I lay
chilling.
on the couch and
Yeah, you're like trying to regroup.
yeah. And sometimes that's okay.
Absolutely. You need a day to just be like,
yeah.
every now and then I got to have a day where I'm like, I got to be a piece of shit today.
So what do you think do you think bringing Polestar coffee back in the adventure races, is that kind of the plan to kind of bridge the gap between things, or are they different things?
I think they can definitely play together, and I think Polestar will eventually have a way to feed into like Guardian Revival, right? That kind of stuff. I think I want to add that to it, or whether it's a Night Stalker Foundation or Guardian Revival, however it ties into something, right? As far as adventure racing, we'll continue to do that. I think my thing that I've noticed is I don't really, or I've come to have like an outline for the future, like this is kind of where I want to go, but I don't have like a grand big picture. I just I'm somewhat impulsive. You can tell by the 47 jobs and the 17 colleges I've gone to in the last 6 years. But it's like I'm kind of a go with the flow dude. Like, hey, I have this moment in time, we're in a spot where I can start Polestar again, so let's run it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's see where, like, I have ideas where I'd like it to go, but let's just run it. And then, maybe if it doesn't work out in 5 years, it doesn't work out in 5 years. We'll see. I like to try different things. I like to do different stuff. And I think with those two things, they're so different, but they kind of feed into each other. And you can kind of pick and choose your own adventure, especially when it comes to coffee. Like, how do you want your coffee? You want to be like a Top Knot dude, or you want to be Black Rifle Coffee, or you want to be Starbucks? You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of choose your own adventure and build your community off that, right? Which is nice. And the adventure racing thing is like our time for the boys to get together,
right,
and go play war for 3 days when you're hallucinating and you've slept 3 hours in 72. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
So that feeds that monster that still resides inside my soul. Because some days it hits me. I'm driving home and like a song comes on, and it was a song maybe I had in my earbud when we'd go hit targets or something, right? And there's no place I would rather be than in Afghanistan in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, I have those moments still. It's like, man, there's all this other shit is whatever. Like, if you put me back there in Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, and we're doing the thing, like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. But that's just living off a dying dream. Like, that's not who I am now. I'm so irrelevant in that field.
Yeah.
It's not even funny.
And that I often see like guys on social media that like still put on like BDUs or whatever, and like do all these photo shoots. I don't really get it. Like, I just don't. It's cool, I guess, but it's just not. Like, I know that I'm obsolete now, and that it's just like a different season of life.
It doesn't serve me anymore to think like that, right?
Yeah.
It does nothing for me because I need to be moving forward. And I think the one thing that kind of kept me moving forward, even though it was at a slow trudge, was just kind of like, no matter how shitty it got or it gets, it was just kind of like, 1 foot in front of the other. Like, you just got to get up. Nothing changes if nothing changes was always kind of my little mantra when things like, well, if you're not happy with where you're at, what did you do today to change it?
Yeah.
And like,
yeah. And that's kind of like the theme of this podcast. Like, no one is coming. It's up to us. Is like, nobody is going to get you out of this, but you, and maybe like a really close friend or your wife or something, but you can't count on anybody to do anything. And I don't mean that to be like nihilist.
I think what really, and tell me if I'm wrong, like, no one's coming to get you. No one's going to come ask for help for you.
Yeah.
Right? There's everybody in the world who you have in your corner, most likely, whether it's family or friends, like, there's somebody, or whether, it's a psychiatrist, right? No one's going to ask for that help for you. So you going to save yourself is being big enough to stand up and say, hey, I'm fucked up right now. I need something. I need somebody.
Did you, I think he might have got there. He definitely got there after you left. Nick O'Kelly was in Charlie Company.
No, I don't know.
He was a pilot over there, and he's on a bunch of podcasts talking about his mental health journey. And I had no idea. And I'm not. Hope he doesn't mind. I mean, he's talked about it on multiple podcasts, but he was going to kill himself. Like, and I would talk to him like that day, and he seemed great. And to know that he was going to do that, now I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like, and
it's a lot of people that you don't know about.
Yeah,
right? And I think it's most of the guys. You know what I mean? If there was somebody who hasn't thought about it at some point, it would be a surprise.
Yeah, yeah.
And it hit me one night when I was sleeping in the bed of my truck at work instead of going home. I was just I was like, this is it. Like, this is why dudes kill themselves. Because it was one of those things I never really when I was in, I was like, what a loser. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, what an idiot. But then I was just out there and I was like, man, because it's a big black hole. And if you don't ever ask for help, and there's no way, you don't know which way is up.
Yeah.
And so you're just making decisions that are making everything worse.
Yeah. And I think too, you get in these mindset that you kind of circle the drain, like, because one thought leads to another, and then another, and then that turns into like, well, I don't really feel like getting off the couch, and then that turns a minute turns into like 10, and then 10 turns into an hour
a day.
Have you heard of that thing? I can't remember who I saw this, where it's the 10. I think it's Mel Robbins. Do you know that lady? She's
Maybe.
She's pretty. I like her. Maybe I heard it on her podcast, but it's like, it's either 3, 2, 1 or the 10-second rule. Like, whenever you're going to do something, you just count down from it. Maybe it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you do it. Because if you let yourself like think about it, and I've been trying it like when I get up in the morning, like today I just laid there because I just couldn't get out of bed. But I just normally would lay there, and then I get to a point where I have to get out of the bed because like I got to get to work.
Yeah.
But like my wife gets up for nursing school way early, and then I've just been getting, because I'm like, fuck, I'm already awake. And where I would normally just kind of lay in the bed until it's time for me to get up, now I just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 get up, and anyways, it's just something like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
I think I've heard somebody talk about that. Yeah.
It's some kind of like psychological thing,
right?
But
we just kind of set yourself up, because it's like it's a daily struggle, right? Like, I've had people comment with like our training program that we did for the race, where we were like, oh my God, so much discipline. And I was like, no, I'm probably like, I have a lot of discipline when my alarm goes off from 4 to like 4:02. I set my alarm across the room, I get up, and then from there for the rest of the day, it's like a monumental battle to do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, lace up your shoes, you got to put on your ruck.
But you're still getting up at 4 in the morning now?
4:15, yeah.
So it's 7:30 at night. What time do you go to bed normally?
Usually around 10. I hit the bed around like 9:30, 10.
Yeah, we're usually in the bed like, probably at 10. And then we'll lay in there, and she's watching TikToks. And then I'm watching her watch the TikToks. Like, kids watch each other play video games.
Right.
So I just kind of look over her shoulder, and because I'm like, no way I'm getting TikTok. But
I'll watch your TikTok.
I watch all her TikToks. And the shit people put on people will believe anything. They're like, guys, I got this miracle cure. If you just rub bleach all over your face, you will.
It'll fix your sunspots.
Yeah, and like the craziest shit. And people do it and they try it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna start making up all kinds of shit and put it
like
on
high
TikTok.
school all over again.
Yeah, but anyways, man, I think that's probably a good place to kind of
1:30.
But I think that's awesome. I think we covered a lot of ground. I think you can actually hear me breathing in here because my wife says I'm a loud breather. That's her number one
What
pet
does she
peeve.
even know though?
Yeah, she's like, stop breathing. I'm
How
like,
does she say syrup?
Yeah, she says syrup. I don't know though. She's from Buffalo, so she might originally have said syrup because she says pop, and she says biag.
Biag.
It's a bag.
Go grab your biag,
Go
honey.
grab your bag. And I'm like, if you weren't so hot, I couldn't do it. But I guess it could be worse. It could be like Boston.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Have you seen that guy, Kevin Clooney or
No, I don't
Cleary
think
or Cooney? That's he's a blonde hair, and his wife is from Boston, and she's got like a super thick Boston accent. That's his whole shtick. He's just like constantly making fun of her, say things, which it's kind of getting old, but he's on TikTok. So
that's why I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
I don't have TikTok.
But I don't either.
Yeah.
But I live vicariously through my wife's TikTok.
That's why I plug my phone in across the room, so I can't even touch it when I'm in my bed.
I was doing that for a while. I was leaving it outside of our bedroom because the whole EMF thing, which I still don't know if it's real, but I'm kind of think it's real because France just outlawed the iPhone 13 because the EMF waves were too much. I mean, it's definitely emitting shit, but then I got Wi-Fi in my house, which is constantly bombarded. So
and you've been breathing JP8 for your whole life.
Yeah.
We're done for it. It's over.
We're done. Yeah. So on that, let's close it. We're all gonna die.
Thanks for listening to No One Is Coming, It's Up to Us. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. While you're at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, no one is coming. It's up to us.